Let's go on San Pietro, because how did that happen? Because again, it's a very cohesive film. It's very clearly your movie.
I was just told to proceed to Italy, and there get a crew. There would be a signal corps crew waiting for me. I'd met a man whom I admired very much, a very fine writer. You know, of course, Eric Ambler. And he was a captain in the British Army. And we wangled orders for him to come along with me. And we arrived, first in North Africa, then proceeded to airport and to Naples, and from Naples on into up to Army at Caserta, and from there on out into the field of operations.
From the end of October 1943 until the middle of December, San Pietro and the surrounding ground was the scene of some of the bitterest fighting on our Fifth Army front. The push forward again after a static period brought on by heavy seasonal rains. Our battle lines were haphazard as the terrain itself, with its flood-swollen rivers that twisted back and forth across our line of march so that each river seemed like five. And where there was no river to cross, a mountain blocked our going, each peak ahead being a few meters higher than the last we had won, so that each new peak had to be fought for, the hard, uphill way, with the enemy looking down our throats.
However, we proceeded kind of inch by inch until we got the threshold of Leary Valley, which was defended by the little town San Pietro. And Eric and I made one foray into Leary Valley. There'd been an attack, and the attack had been repulsed, and we went forward ahead of the next attack, the attack that was to follow. And it was quite a day. There were numbers of dead men. Rain had just fallen, and men dead behind their machine guns, and everything looking very bright, and the sun had come out after the rain. We set out at dawn to go to what we thought was an evacuated objective. Well, it turned out not to be evacuated. The Germans were there in force, and they let go at us, and we dived for cover, and then some mortar shells came in. We were behind a wall, and that saved our lives. Some mortar shells came in, and there was smoke and dust, and we were able to escape. Otherwise, we'd have been either shot or taken prisoner. Often thought the Germans must have wondered it. I remember I had a sprained ankle, and I was walking with a stick, and Eric was of course, in his British uniform. Well, the enemy must have looked at us askance. Cut. God damn little dog. The crew was largely composed of combat-trained cameramen from Astoria and Monmouth. I used not one, but several crews. There were continual replacements.
Of the original force to establish the beachhead at Salerno, the 143rd had since spent all but a fortnight in action under extremely bitter weather conditions. At Salerno, at the Volturno crossing, it had taken mortal punishment. The task ahead promised no less bloodshed, yet it was undertaken in good spirits and high confidence. The 1st Battalion began the long, rugged climb up Mount Sammucro.
Well, they were a wonderful outfit. It had largely to do with the 36th Texas Infantry Division, the 142nd, and we were attached to them, and just it was the story of that regiment in the operation. Mm-hmm. It was, by the way, it was 100% replacements.
It had rained most of the night, and it was raining at each hour when the 2nd and 3rd Battalions crossed the line of departure. Some 200 yards forward, they encountered mines and automatic fire from pillboxes. Artillery were deadly accurate by reason of excellent enemy observation from Mount Lungo, overlooking our advance, which continued another 200 to 400 yards.
One, a sound man, and who had his assistant, and 3 cameramen. And a lieutenant and a sergeant. They all shot. There five cameramen, one sound man, and boom man.
See, that absolutely astounds me, because I've never heard of any sound crew going anywhere near combat in World War II.
Yes.
We never even dreamed of it.
Yes, well, there was, I used them to very, very good advantage. I have conversations with men before an attack, or sometimes at night. Conversations, I'd ask them what the war was about, what we were fighting for. And sometimes they were very eloquent in their answers.
Volunteer patrols made desperate attempts to reach enemy positions and reduce strong points. Not a single member of any such patrol ever came back alive. Many men gave their lives in attempts to reach pillboxes and throw hand grenades through the narrow gun openings. The 3rd Battalion was committed. Never got more than 600 yards past the line of departure. Our initial assault on San Pietro had been repulsed, with heavy casualties.
We, a number of these men whose that I'd talked with were casualties, and I photographed them being put into their mattress covers. That required sitting them up and pulling the mattress cover around them so their faces would come into the camera. And I had the lines, the words that they said in their own voices, their own words and their own voices, over those close-ups of the men themselves. And I suppose it was too effective, too emotional, and I agree. Quite rightly, it was deleted from the material, from the final material. That and a few other shots that were probably brutalizing in their rather too much to take.
Our attacking forces were furnished excellent aerial cover by Allied fighter patrols. But now and then, enemy planes were able to slip through and to bomb and strafe our positions, which to all purposes had remained unchanged since the first day. To break the deadlock, orders were given for a coordinated divisional attack. The 2nd and 3rd Battalions of the 143rd to proceed in the execution of the original orders. Acting in conjunction, Company A of the 753rd Tank Battalion to attack San Pietro from the east over the high road. 1 battalion of the 141st to attack over the flat valley floor. After nightfall on D-Day, the 142nd Infantry Regiment to attack Mount Lungo. The earlier decision not to attack those strategic heights having been reversed in view of the present critical situation. In preparation for the attack, all 5th Army artillery within range, including tanks and all tracks, was directed against San Pietro and the surrounding area. Each hour, 1,200 hours. D-Day, the 15th of December. The 141st Infantry advanced some 400 yards from its line of departure, to be borne down and held powerless under the weight of enemy fire. The 2nd and 3rd Battalions of the 143rd advanced some 100 yards beyond their former positions to a point almost directly before forward enemy defenses. And for the 3rd time, they were forced to take such cover as the quaking earth could offer. And the tanks. Orders were for them to enter the town and to locate and destroy the heavy weapons there, which were leveled against our attacking foot soldiers. The high road into San Pietro is a narrow mountain road. And from the beginning of its winding descent in the Liri Valley, it was under direct enemy observation. "16 tanks started down that road. 3 reached the outskirts of the town. Of these, 2 were destroyed, and 1 was missing. 5 tanks were immobilized behind enemy lines, their crews having to abandon them. 5 tanks hit enemy mines within our lines and were thereupon destroyed by enemy gunfire. 4 tanks returned to the bivouac area. After dark, 2 companies, 1 from the 2nd Battalion and 1 from the 3rd, finally succeeded in penetrating enemy positions before San Pietro. But receiving both frontal and flanking fire, they were forced to retire. Company E having been reduced in strength to a handful of riflemen, and Company L faring little better. On the Mount Samocro Ridge, the 1st Battalion fought its way to within a few hundred yards of the objective. But it had paid for ground gained at the rate of a man a yard, and it did not have strength to carry the fight any further forward. On Mount Lungo, however, despite bitter resistance, battalions of the 142nd in successive waves kept pushing upwards until, in the early daylight hours of the 16th of December, its foot soldiers had gained the summit and were wiping up what remained of a stubborn enemy. And that height proved to be a key position in the enemy plan of defense, for even as Mount Lungo fell, the enemy throughout the San Pietro area made preparations to withdraw. Almost invariably, the enemy will counterattack to cover a withdrawal. The first violent thrust was delivered within a few hours. And thereafter, counterattacks came in waves, the roar of the last mingling with the rush and fury of the next to bring. Many companies lost all their officers. Enlisted men came forward as inspirational leaders to rally their battered companies into resisting yet one more onslaught. Our own artillery was brought to fall within 100 yards of our front-line elements. After 5 hours, during which the earth never ceased to tremble, counterattacks ended, indicating that the withdrawal of the enemy's main body had commenced. In an effort to maintain contact with the enemy, our patrols immediately pushed ahead. Entering the town, they discovered that San Pietro was ours for the taking.
However, San Pietro was, it wasn't liked at all at the Pentagon when I showed it. Those scenes had been deleted, by the way, already. And maybe one or two of them were in the picture, I forget, but for the most part, it was not sensational in its and they were shown in a projection room, big brass. There was one 3-star general there, and 2 or 3 2-star generals, and a number of 1-star generals. I remember the ranking officer rising someplace around, a third of the picture been shown, rising and leaving the theater. And when he was gone, the next ranking officer rose, and he left. And so they went, one after the other, until I was alone, or practically so, in the room. I thought, what assholes.
The 2nd and 3rd Battalions, less than a rifle company in strength, weary to death who were alive, stumbled forward past San Pietro to consolidate gains and re-establish contact with the enemy, now taking up new positions some 5 kilometers beyond. That is the broad shape of the Battle of San Pietro, which was but the first of many battles in the Erie Valley. It was a very costly battle. After the battle, the 143rd Infantry Regiment alone required 1,100 replacements. The lives lost were precious lives to their country, to their loved ones, and to the men themselves. For the living of the 143rd Infantry Regiment, more than 100 decorations for acts of valor above and beyond the call of duty. Many among these you see alive here have since joined the ranks of their brothers in arms who fell at San Pietro. For ahead lay San Vittore and the Rapido River and Casino, and beyond Casino more rivers and more mountains and more towns, more San Pietros, greater or lesser, 1,000 more.
The time I got back to the photographic division of the Single Corps, why, the disgrace had already been rumored, and I was regarded, I'm afraid, as something of a pariah, and they didn't know what to do with me. For some time, a couple of weeks, I guess, went past. And then, by one of those fortunate accidents, General George C. Marshall saw the film. I suppose he'd heard enough bad things about it to enlist his interest. And his reaction was exactly the opposite of everyone's else. He said that their ostensible reason, they declared that it was be unfit for Army personnel to see the film because it would be demoralizing for men for men who were headed for combat. And Marshall said that they were the very men who should see such a film to prepare them for the experience of combat. Well, the atmosphere changed overnight. I was decorated, and I was made a major. And, that was the end of that chapter.
As the battle passed over and beyond San Pietro, westward, townspeople began to appear, coming out of their caves in the mountains where they had stayed in hiding during the enemy occupation. They were mostly old people and children. People were warned against enemy mines and booby traps, which were in the process of being cleared. Children are able to forget quickly. Yesterday they wept. Today there are smiles and even laughter. Tomorrow it will be as though the bad things had never happened.
I hadn't seen many documentaries. A few of the British pictures, Bob Flaherty's, The River.
You'd seen none of them?
I'd seen those. But as I say, that it didn't, I wasn't aware of any sharply dividing line between a documentary and a feature picture, except that the one that I talked about. In the feature picture, you wrote the script first and then shot the picture. And in the documentary, you shot the picture and then let the script come out of it.
Well, you knew Flaherty at this time, didn't you?
Oh, very well. When I came back from Italy, having shot San Pietro, I saw a great deal of Flaherty. I saw him almost every day over a period of weeks and months.
Living was resumed in San Pietro. Our prime military aim being to engage and defeat the enemy, the capture of the town itself and the liberation of its people is of an incidental nature. But the people in their military innocence look upon us solely as their deliverers. It was to free them and their farmlands that we came. Behind our lines, southwest to the sea, the fields are green with growing crops planted after our coming by other people of other towns who believed likewise. The new won earth at San Pietro was plowed and sown. It should yield a good harvest this year. And the people prayed to their patron saint to intercede with God in behalf of those who came, delivered them, and passed on to the north with the passing battle.
There were a few pictures like that during the war. Willie Wyler's Memphis Belle, and which was a very personal account. Willie went on all the missions himself, and they're pretty rough occasions they were too. Jack Ford. Then later on in the Pacific. But yes, I suppose San Pietro was probably the first personal account. It was personal in the sense that it was actually witnessed by the camera. Diego, come here, boy. Come on, bring it over here. That's a fella. That's a fella.